Today on the pod, my guest is James Kawalecki. He's the VP of Marketing at Boston Pizza and been at Boston Pizza for quite a while now in different roles, dipped into the marketing director and then some sports focus. And maybe give us a bit of a background about your journey with the brand that everyone knows and loves in Canada.
You're right. 13 and a half years ago, made a move from agency world and came over to the dark side, right?
Or the
Uh,
bright side, however you see it.
yeah. I think, well, when you're on the agency side, you think of it as the dark side for sure, right? Yeah, made the move and came over to run a sports bar and sponsorship. That's what was so appealing to me at the time was getting into a portfolio that included NHL teams, Hockey Canada and UFC, Jays. And I had always had a big uh, interest in sports and have always been a big sports guy, sports fans. Kind of always go through, I call it the three C's, Caleb. I always talk about it, but like the moves you make in career. And even some of my younger marketers, I tell them that, listen, I know we're a big, small company and not everyone's going to be able to move up.
Yeah.
So when it comes time to look for your next gig, I implore the three C's of content. Like, what are you actually going to be working on? And do you have an innate interest for it? And do you love it? And is it interesting? And culture, do you know where you're going? And do you know the people there? And do you know how they foster and how they build culture internally? And then the very last one is obviously compensation, because
Yeah.
I think you and I probably grew up in a world where people are like, oh, don't worry about money. Don't chase money.
Tough
I,
to do that now in Canada.
to a degree, but like people still have to live, right? So I think there is absolutely a measure of compensation that matters when you're making a move, right? So the thing with BP was I had heard great things about the culture and the compensation. Well, the compensation was not the reason for the move. It was more the content and the culture in this situation. Thought it was a perfect time in my career to kind of move over, and then took on the sports bar and sponsorship portfolio, which, sounds it is as cool as it sounds, right? Like,
Yeah.
my job was selling pizza, wings, beer, and doing sponsorships. So it was not a bad job to start. And then I moved into regional marketing. So working more closely with franchisees, with restaurants on, instead of all a national portfolio, in regions and then specific locations to try and generate sales. So I took on the East, so Ontario and Atlantic region at first. Then like a year and a half later, I got sponsorship and sports bar back nationally. I think that happens when you're the sports guy, right? It's like a tough thing to shed. Everyone was like, well, you're still the sports guy. So I got it back nationally and then eventually got regional and local for nationally. So took on all the different regions and local marketing across the country. Then CRM, which is our loyalty, did a little bit of both CRM and loyalty, which was like an interesting add to the portfolio. And I'm really thankful I did, because it's the great thing about working at, like I said, a big, small company is that you get these opportunities where they can't really afford to work in silos, right? So it's not like,
Yeah.
this over here and that. It's like I got to dabble in something I was really interested in. And obviously loyalty and CRM is such a big part of whole marketing today. So and then from there got promoted to VP and kind of took on, social and menu and all our ad agency, media agency, PR agency relationships, and now work on national promos, take on delivery, menu, and social, yeah, and digital, all
Mm.
of digital, including e-com. So it's been a path, like you said, that had a couple of maybe left turn, right turn, some upward mobility. But if I hadn't done a left turn, right turn, I would have never been as rounded as I am and in the position I'm in. If I just
Yeah.
stuck to mass comms, mainstream, because in a company where, 99.9% of our restaurants are franchise owned, you've got to be a little closer to what is important to them every day. So while the mass comm is great, the local and regional was so important for my learning. And
Yeah. Because it's been a significant chunk of time with a lot of different mandates and areas of focus or responsibility. What have you learned about yourself as a leader and as a professional and as a person over this awesome journey that you had?
yeah, you know what? It's a topical question. I wasn't thinking about this answer this morning because of this podcast, but I was literally thinking about this because we've had a lot of people start with it. We've hired about 5 or 6 new people in the last 2 months. When they kind of look for advice on If anything to kind of help guide me across marketers and agency people, depending on what used to, well, unless you've been fortunate enough to work in an organization where you have worked closely with ops and culinary and the cross-functional team. I think marketers are typically used to, I put it on the shelf and I put some advertising out and away it goes, right? Like, yeah, you've got to deal with supply chain and packaged goods and all the rest of that. But the restaurant really is where good programs that aren't well thought out go to die, right? Because like if you can't operationalize a program, you're
Yeah.
definitely in it can be small things in programs that get the better of you in restaurant, but if a small thing can quickly become a big thing in restaurant execution. So working as close as we did with ops was kind of a huge learning. And one key takeaway for me is make sure you always include the cross-functional team, because you're not on your own here. It's not just, hey, put a price point on something and get it out the door and let's see how it does. It's just not that simple. And then the second one is more, hey, I think I learned it really on the client side. I had some great mentors on the client side that it's really hard when you're junior in your career. And I think maybe there's even an element for us in being Canadian where you want to say yes, right? Like you want to start from a position of yes, but started to learn on a client side, working with clients, that at the end of the day, people have to trust you. They have to, when you say yes, the answer needs to be yes, right?
Yeah.
So setting expectations. And then like I said, when you move to a model where it's 99% franchisees, they essentially become like clients, right? So I think right from day one, it was important to me that when I said something, it ended up true, or it was true. And if I didn't know the answer, I didn't make things up, and I didn't overpromise, and I didn't say what I thought people wanted to hear to smooth
Right.
out what could be a potentially difficult conversation. I said what I meant, and I tried to be true to my word. And when you work in local and regional marketing, and then as you grow up in a franchise system, I think that becomes really, really key. Like, I don't want to call it integrity, but I think it does become like your
Yeah.
professional integrity, right? Like, you deliver on what you say, and yeah, is
Yeah.
what they actually able to be done.
I hear you. And for a brand like Boston Pizza, and with all of the stakeholders that are involved, franchisees, ops, different people, why do you think, I think in this role, truth is so important, but why do you think truth is critical if you're trying to scale something and create impact and mobilize teams and get people participating together? Why is truth so critical, even if it's scary sometimes to?
Yeah, you know what a great framing of the question, because you're right. It is essentially truth. And I think truth leads to trust, right? Like there's such a connection there. And if I trust the people I'm working with and they trust me, am I always going to be right? No, like not even close. But you trust that I'm trying to do the right thing, or I started off with the best intentions, then you're more likely to want to help that person, right? And I'm not even speaking about me. It's like I trust my team, and we try to build a lot of trust on the team in terms of, let's figure it out together. Let's mean what we say and do what we said we're going to do, and then you figure out the bumps in the road together. Yeah, but I do think that truth is so important, to your point, because without it, there is no trust. And if there's no trust, everything starts to break it down, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then I've seen in my career, I'm sure you have, it's like the slippery slope that as soon as you've lost trust, now everything starts to be second guessed, and you start to scramble a little bit.
Totally. And you can never get the full color of the people that you hired, because there's a fear that, I don't know, my idea is going to be bad, or I'm not going to be supported in doing this. If we know within our marketing game, there's nothing really intellectual property driven. It's people and getting the full weight of those people. So I guess you're saying that your job as a leader is to maybe create that foundation, perhaps you wish, or maybe you did have when you were a young marketer just joining the group, right?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. How do you create, and again, not to, this is part of the three C's is culture. And how do you create good culture? You can't have good culture if you don't have trust, right? I think the cultures you do start to get into finger pointing, or, everyone's always constantly looking back and looking for the source of problems, or looking for, like, there's no trust. Like you're constantly, we don't have a lot of cover your ass emails at BP. We don't waste time on that stuff. It leads to a more relaxed, and it's less make work, right? Because of what I just said, you're not constantly, if you're too busy staring at all the obstacles, sometimes you can't find the path, right? And it's like, so trust kind of gets rid of all that garbage so that you can keep moving forward, and then you deal with the hurdles as they come up.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing I'm curious about specifically for you is that, in Canada, there's a few iconic brands. There's the Tim Hortons, but Boston Pizza's in this small category. So do you feel like a sense of responsibility, if you will? You and your team feel a sense of
Huge.
responsibility
Yeah.
because there's so many franchisees, which means there's so many intimate community relationships woven together under a national brand that's been here forever, really represents a lot of what Canada is. Tell me about how you think about that.
Yeah. The answer is 1,000,000% yes. Like you do feel a responsibility to the brand because, you realized, and we're really lucky. We're really, really lucky that Jim is still here, and he's still very much a part of everything. And by here, I mean physically, but also like he part of the business, right? Like he is in the office, and he'll tell you everything you want to know at the beginning. And granted, he didn't start the company, but when he took it over from the founder, we get all the history, and we get it right from the guy, right? Like right from the source. And when you see him into his 80s now, still coming in the office with the energy and enthusiasm for the business that I'm sure he had, 40, 50 years ago, it's pretty incredible, right? And it's pretty inspiring to all of us. But then you do feel the weight and responsibility of working on a 60-plus-year-old Canadian brand. You mentioned one that's not still Canadian, but it
Yeah.
is a Canadian icon. But it's like, it's different for us. I think it's different. It's like, I don't have to call Brazil or New York or anywhere. Like, we think of something strategically and we think it's a good idea, there's like one layer. It's not, and you kind of quickly, but with that becomes that responsibility you're talking about. And I'll give you the most recent example. I remember when I got to BP 13 years ago, kind of, you look at the Rondell and the old Rondell with all the swirly and stuff going on. You go, have you ever thought about maybe updating that, or, maybe a little facelift?
You
People
almost Cracker Barreled it on your first day.
No, and like, listen, that was not my first day thing. It's just something you kind of think to yourself, and then you quickly realize that in meetings you're in, where it's like, there are some sacred cows here, and that's one of them, right? Like, do not touch the one. But then, like I said about Jim, kudos to Jim and ownership, and his daughter Cheryl, who is the president of the holding company. They're all intimately involved in the business, and when we went to them and said, listen, we're looking at the brand as a whole, and we think there are some updates and some modernizations that we can do, we put it in there. We said, hey, it would be bad on us if we looked at everything to make the brand modern and didn't take it and just see like what
Right.
happens if we play with what is the biggest icon, right? And we lost inspiration for that, right? Like I think of, Bud has continued to kind of modernize and tweak their logo, and Pepsi. And there's some really recent examples, right? Of you can keep the core of the brand and the equity you've built, but find a way just to give you a bit of a Reno,
Yeah.
so to speak. So going through that work, the responsibility we felt was this isn't, and I'll kind of use that word again. It wasn't a tear it down and rebuild it. It was, how do you Reno to make the logo potentially just a little more modern and a little younger. And they were very open to it. But again, it started with, no, this is not a teardown. This is a tweak.
That would have, I could imagine that would be a daunting task, and that as the leader of the marketing function, that modernizing has to be on your mind and on the agenda, but but going into it with a level of respect and caution and preservation of what was,
Yeah.
because then we start alienating communities and diehard lifelong fans. I think that trust, respect, consideration, intention, all of these things that you had to lean on really heavily and to make a mark, right?
Yeah. I mean, you and I, like, I don't, depending on when we go to air here, the most recent example, and I'm sure it'll still be relevant, is Cracker Barrel, right? Like if you do it wrong, it can be pretty impactful in the wrong way too, right? So it's a tricky line to walk, but I thought we did a really good job of keeping some of the equity we built up for decades within the logo and all of our research, because obviously you're not going to make a big change like that without getting a read on it first.
Yeah.
All of our research pre-launch has played out in post-launch as well, where
Yeah.
people say, wasn't that always the logo? Like that's what we're getting back in research, right? It's like,
Wow.
oh, it actually wasn't, but that's great. Like, so very recognizable. People still know it, love it. So we tick the box in a major way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can think of a lot of different things Boston Pizza has done that were so smart from a marketing standpoint. One example, I don't know if you have kids, like just the genius around bugs and cheese for me, which was, it's like the food's basically free. It's exactly what the kids want. It's like
Yeah.
a starch and white sauce, but we're going in there because the kids are making the decision, right? So
Yeah. No, and it's interesting in that a world of menu naming, you're always walking that people need to know what it is. And then if it's too fun, it's like, oh, well, that doesn't tell anyone what it is. It's like,
yeah,
well, I don't know. Like our most popular items are bugs and cheese and worms and wort and Boston fruit. Like that doesn't tell you what it is. Like it's so and the brute's been on the menu for decades. The spicy pierogi actually does do a pretty good job of telling you exactly what it is. But
yeah,
some of our long standing like cactus cuts, I don't know what that is. I would have never known what that is, right? Like, so we have lots of things on our menu that have fun, playful names that have endured. But it does, in the art science world that we always live in marketing, there's a little bit of art and a little bit of science. And then there's things like bugs and cheese and worms and dirt where it's like,
let her rip.
yeah, and they can see that it's, noodles and cheese, they'll like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
With for you, I would imagine that there's so many different different jobs or companies that you could hang your hat and do your work at. What is it like? Is it the culture? Is there something else that fulfills you? Because when we get later on in our career, we're in pursuit of fulfillment and ability to create impact. And what is it that keeps you so tethered to the brand right now in your career and your journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to my earlier point about some sort of mentorship, I still have things that excite me about, what's coming up 6 months from now, or where do you go from a year from now? I mean, we're coming off of a year where we launched an epic playoff promo. We did a spot with Chris Hadfield. We had different spots for every round of the playoff. We encouraged Canadians to come along for the ride and try and bring the cup back. Then we transitioned into a summer campaign where we announced new branding and a new deal with Live Nation. We went a little younger and after music for the first time at this big as a brand.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, like we're still putting first stuff on the board, right? Like in the 60-year-old brand, like we're
That's wild.
doing things that have never been done before in ways that we've never seen. I think, again, I go back a little bit to the permission right from the top down that says, yes, like, let's keep pushing. Like we're not going away. Or if anything, let's figure out how to get bigger and better. And so those projects were massively exciting. But then I look at the work that needs to be done to maintain and sustain, right? Like you can't just launch new platforms like that and kind of set it, forget it. So I think to answer your question, what keeps me here is that there are always those projects where you kind of feel like the job's not quite done. Or, I read something recently about someone who was close to the summit of Everest, right? It's like what keeps you going all the way to the summit? It's like you want to get there. And we're having one of our best years ever as a brand. Like we haven't had this kind of guest count growth and sales growth in over a decade. And so when you can put that kind of mark on a brand, it feels good. It both as like a part of the company and the culture and as a marketer, when you look back at some of the work and you say, okay, well, hopefully some of our work and the brand momentum is ingrained in these results. Yeah, I think that's what keeps you back. Like, I guess it's kind of like, and not to run a sports analogy, but
I was going to say, give me some sports.
well, and you want to be part of a winning team, right? When you feel like you're winning,
Totally.
it feels pretty good. So when people come knocking on your door and say, hey, do you want to come? It's like, talk to me more about content and culture. And then
Right.
if I'm still interested, we can talk about compensation. But there's not, like I said, when you're selling pizza, wings, and beer and you're talking sports, and it's tough. It's tough to find a lot that on the content side where you, okay, I'm passionate about all those things. And I really do feel like you need to be passionate about what you work on, because if you don't know, work can be a real drag. So I'm pretty lucky.
Be part of a winning team. I mean, there's so many brands that with this many years under their belt, it's easy to just kind of stick it into cruise and kind of ride off. But testament to the leadership, right? Jim and Cheryl and others involved, like,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What what would you say as a leader of both a function and people, just as a marketing leader, a professional, what would you claim to be your superpower? You know, the thing that you personally go back to time and time again because it's so ingrained as a comfort area that this is my sweet spot. As compared to, I'll ask you after,
Yeah.
your Achilles heel.
Great
So first, your
question.
superpower.
You know what? And I don't know if this language is catching on. I thought we were the only ones that use this, not like the idea of a superpower, but like I really do. Again, when like you and I are now talking to the next generation, and when they get nervous or they're unsure about something, I'll say, you gotta lean on your superpower. Oh, God, what do you mean? I'm like, well, okay, if you're nervous about that presentation, what's your superpower? With one person, actually, I remember saying to her, she was really nervous about getting, it was a big main stage presentation, 1,000 people, big lights, can't see anything in front of you, right? All you can see is these spotlights staring in the eye. And I'm like, you have to remember that your superpower is actually when people look at you, they just go, like you have this incredible
Calming.
calming presence where people will just kind of exhale and smile, and you're very likable. They like what's going on. Like you put them at ease. So know that when you start your presentation, you're starting from that point. Okay, the whole audience is just like, okay, tell us what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, and that's an incredible superpower, right? To like instantly have that kind of presence. I think for me, superpower is probably in the getting to know people and being flexible, getting to know people on a deeper level, and then really trying to be empathetic, sympathetic, whatever the word. As a leader, I'm not going to say this is a superpower, but it goes back to what I talked to. I never care about whose fault. I've never used the words whose fault because it's my fault. If something screwed up, it's my fault. Like, and I think you and I are talking about sports. You learn that playing sports, right? Like the minute you point a finger or you say it's your fault, you're a terrible teammate. You're not doing any good for anyone.
Yeah. And there's no point,
That's
you
how
know.
teams crumble, right? So whose fault? I will absolutely say things like, let's learn from this and figure out what we need to do next time so that we don't, which is not saying whose fault. It's saying if there is learning here, let's just take it so that we don't, so we don't. Yeah. And I'm pretty optimistic all the time, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
figure what if we can do, and we'll go as far as we can. And maybe we can, maybe we can't. So probably people.
Yeah, I was picking up on that, even with the example, especially with the example of your colleague there and the speaking on the stage. Like,
Yeah.
I think potentially what your superpower is tied to is finding the superpower in others, right? And creating the playing field for people to operate in their zone of genius, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's
Actually, yeah. And at the same time, I think the flip side is sometimes you asked about Achilles heel. I think you have to let people know what their superpower is, but sometimes you also have to find a really nice way of letting people know what their blind spot was, right? And because that's where ultimately, like I said to you off the top, like I always say to people, hopefully you can move up the ranks and be promoted at BP, but if you can't, I want this to be some of the best training you ever get. And if you are looking to better people and build them up to new heights, then they need to know what their blind spots are or how to make them better. So lots of personal development, learning, I think is important as well. I try to get it from everyone, like in terms of what I can do better.
maybe a year from now or 2 years from now for both your team, your function, and for you as the leader of that team. Can you describe what comes to mind when I ask, what does the good news story sound like? What does the headlines read? What's a good news story for you as it relates to your team and function and your leadership role?
Yeah, I think for me, like I mentioned, we have so many new hires, and we've just done a bit of a reorg with our team, meaning more people taking on different responsibilities, I think a year from now. And we did that because we felt that we wanted the team to have more rounded learning. I talked about silos earlier. We never really worked in silos because we're not a big enough team. But at the same time, I think it's really important to give people access or experience in different areas. So you round them out so that, like I said, whether it's this job or somewhere else, they're ready. They're ready for, and their resume kind of dictates that they've
Yeah.
had the right kind of training and experience to send them to the next level. So I really hope that to answer your question a year from now and just continuously, that I've kind of given people an example, and I get it every day from our leadership team. And like I said, our leadership team gets it from Jim and Cheryl. And it's like the permission to fail, right? It's like if you don't feel like you can go for it, you don't go for it, right? Like you wade into the water a little, and maybe you don't take the big swing because you're worried about, striking out or what. I don't know where you want to go with the
Yeah.
sports, but I think
I'm there for it all day.
permission to fail is
Yeah.
huge. And then you gotta live up to that. Like, because people are gonna fail. You can't then say, well, wait, what happened? Like I said, whose fault? Like you can't do that, because permission to fail falls apart the
Mm.
minute you actually make failure an issue. So permission to fail, and that they build teams. That I grew up in, and were many different leaders, many different teams, many different styles. And I never understood micromanaging or intimidating leadership styles. I didn't get it. And so lead by example, try to, up saying like that you can lead by intimidation or inspiration. Always
Yeah.
choose inspiration, right? Because no one wants to be led by intimidation. Micromanaging stinks, right? Like I don't want to spend half my day telling you about what I'm going to do. I want to actually do the stuff. And then,
Yeah.
hopefully we get in a good enough groove where there's some trust. So this is all one full circle, right? That you trust me enough that I can go and do what I need to do, but then find the right times to connect back. And
Yeah.
so hopefully I'm kind of teaching people in a year from now that they're going to lead teams like that, because I think the workforce in general can be a nicer, happier place, right? Across the board. And I really do feel like we're getting there. Like more and more places I talk to, it's less of the old style of managing, which I think is great.
Yeah. No, it's so refreshing. This is the best part about running this podcast for me. It's so refreshing to hear from marketing leaders like you that when given a half an hour to chat, it just keeps coming back to people and trust and identifying their strengths and leading with through inspiration and all these things where, could have easily said, well, shit, I'm a pretty smart guy. I got a plan here. Just get in line and follow along. Right. It's very inspirational to see.
And be vulnerable too, right? Like knowing summer campaign, we're marketing the youth. I'm not the right guy to be weighing in on stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I have all these young, amazing marketers where when we're seeing work from the agency or talking about the media plan, they're looking at me and I'm like, don't look at me. What do you think? You're the target here. You gotta tell us if we're staying true and being genuine and sincere. And of course, like I have a point of view, but it's, you look to them to actually lead a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So,
Leave us with this thought because I think it's really important. It's been coming up a lot for different leaders I'm talking to, but because you're leading an iconic brand, a team of people, external partners, internal stakeholders, there's a lot. Like this isn't an easy job, I would say. And so can you tell me a little bit about what is some of the relentless negative self-talk that you're burdened by? And more importantly, what is your go-to process for gaining control of this voice that's always telling you, James, you suck, man. You're no good at this. You're going to fail. Walk us through that because this is a problem.
yeah, Caleb, do you mind? Can you say that back one more time? I want to
Yeah.
make sure you answer the question properly.
So tell me a little bit about the negative self-talk that you're burdened by sometimes as a leader of a pretty significant function. But more importantly, I want to hear about what is your process and approach for minimizing those voices, that noise, and getting back to it as a leader of an important function.
Yeah, so I think negative noise, it's competitively, right? Like we're the largest casual dining brand, but we're small compared to, we started this talking about Tim Hortons and McDonald's and their marketing budgets, right? So you're trying to do a very similar function, but a fraction of the budget that others are. And so I think there's always the tendency to be like, yeah, but, right? Like there's a built-in excuse if we want it. It's like, it's right there. It's money. It's they have more, we have less. Therefore, we can't be as good. And I think that's crazy. So good ideas, I still think win all the time. And to get rid of negativity and try and get to those jewels, you and I have seen a bunch of small brands punch way above their weight time and again because they kind of stay focused. And I think that was a big one for us is we're not going to do 100 things okay. We're going to do 3 or 4 a year that we really believe in, we really love, and we're going to do them really well. And then we tried to line up to get rid of, again, negativity. We went through an agency RFP a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And the new ad agency we brought on, which was Camp Jefferson at the time, now evolved into Mechanism. That whole pitch was based around chemistry and fit. We didn't get into creative work because my firm belief and my boss, Peter Blackwell, same belief. You can do great work. Like everyone in this industry is capable of good ideas and good thinking, or else, they wouldn't, one agency to the next. But it's really the magic happens when you get to that point. And here comes that word again, where you just trust, right? Like you trust your agency and you built a foundation of trust. And when you surround yourself with people that you get along with and that you trust, the negative stuff kind of goes away, right? Because everyone starts to believe in what you're doing and believe that you can accomplish or get to the heights you want to get to. If anything, when does the negative start to creep in? It started to creep in when, before we were fully ramped up with this agency partner. It was like, we can do better. And we knew we could do better, and what I would really encourage marketers, people in my function, is if you think it, chances are you're thinking it for a reason. And RFPs are hard and they take time, but man, when you find the right partner, it just unlocks everything. Your day to day with your team becomes easier. Like my team used to be like, and everything was hard, right? Everything felt hard. And it's like, it got easier and my team's happier because they feel like they have a partner and they trust and so building our internal team, we now have an agency roster, media, PR, heads and tails is our PR, Mechanism is our ad agency, where we just trust them. And we've built this like big team where it just kind of feels all like one. And when you hit that magical place, I think that's where you're kind of armed to do your best work, right? And
awesome.
and the negative stuff that you're thinking around, it's fine, but could be better. Or you start looking at briefs too long, like, maybe the brief is the problem. And it's like, sometimes it's chemistry and trust and fit, a lot of
So,
other. Yeah.
and if I'm hearing this right, like, cause what I'm also interested in is like in those quiet times where it's just you at home or you behind your desk and maybe some of the excuses or negativity starts coming into your head. Like as a sports guy, do you have a switch? Do you say, what do you lean on to get out of that space personally?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think identifying it, right? Like if you're going to stew about something, like I said, chances are if you're really stewing or wondering, like, this is bugging me, chances are there's something there that needs to be fixed. We kind of go right after it, right?
Yeah.
And here's where I'll say again, I'm lucky to work at. I don't know if I would be as effective in a layered international company because I'm patient, but not that patient, right? Like where it's like, if there is something bugging, you want to go and fix it, right? And so we don't have a lot of layers and we are able to quickly kind of address things that are bugging us. And like I said, agency RFP is a great example of that. But also, I talked about the brand, I talked about Live Nation. That was like need to figure out how to dust off the brand a little bit, right? Like we need to do a little bit of a reno. We need to do it sooner rather than later. And all those plans from start to finish were like 12 months ish, which, when you think about the nature of how long some of those things would take in larger organizations, and we very much selected the timing. We probably could even be quicker, but we were like, no, summer is the right time. do Live Nation and youth and all that good stuff. So I would say you have to identify it and then start to build the plan to transition out of it, or try and then start
Take action.
your
Yeah.
way to the solution, right? So it's like
Yeah.
that old saying about a problem well defined is a problem half solved, right?
That's right. That's right.
Define it and then get after it.
Yeah. Well, something you said there makes me think about something I've been thinking about a lot. And, when you say, hey, we need to step it up. We need to get better. We must do this. You have the benefit of having leadership and a brand that allows you to say, hey, we get to do it better. Like, we have the opportunity to punch higher, right? Because I think that a lot of times in our head, I must and I need to puts us in this different track. So.
Well, and you also, Caleb, again, it's like we're on the trust train here, but if I didn't have an exec team or a boss who I thought would be receptive when I came in, a lot of people like to, no, the work I'm doing is great. I went in and I'm like, the work is fine, but it's not great. And that was a shot at me, right? Like I was basically saying my work is maybe a B. You gotta have a lot of trust and a lot of comfort to be able to say, hey, the work I've been putting up lately is a B, and I'd like to figure out if we can make it an A, right? And talk about problem well defined, and then building the solution. It's like, here's the vision. Let's see if we can get there. And here are the steps we want to take to, bringing in, figuring out how to have an agency ecosystem that feels like an extension of the team versus just a hired vendor, right? So, yeah.
I believe in that all day. Well, good for you. I think how impactful too when maybe the people in the organization see your work as an A, but you are coming to them saying it's a B. And I wonder how much credibility does that give?
Yeah, I want to get better. Sure.
And so, I got my hat on. It's the date we're recording this is October 20th. Big game tonight.
Game 7.
For the Jays, Game 7 ALCS. What do you think? Is it going to happen?
I think
we need 5 more wins anyway.
Growing up, I've been, what's that?
I said we need 5 more wins anyways, but it starts with 1.
Yeah, you need 5 more, but I think, you can do a World Series. And again, not anything can happen because it's a 7-game series. It's not like a 1 game, but tonight is a 1 game. Being a baseball fan my whole life, you do get feelings about teams, right? You just get that, and talk about, what a perfect way to end everything we've been talking about. This team clearly trusts each other, right? They're pulling for each other. They're not talking about me, and they're not, and Vladdy's talking about doing it for the fans of the city and for each other. And they've built a ton of trust there. So, baseball's a fickle sport. It could be one pitcher that takes over a game tonight, and that's just sports, right? Like that's the way it is. But that this team is going to be remembered as one of the best teams ever put together from the entire roster.
Love it. It is a nice cap to the conversation. I agree. James, I appreciate you kind of lifting the veil a little bit on how you're playing this game. I think you're playing it amazingly well, and excited to, my first job ever was at Boston Pizza, Dish Pit.
No kidding.
Moved up to the line, and then
there you go. Hopefully some of the culture we talked about wasn't
It was great. It was fantastic.
You preach it to the restaurant level.
It was a long time ago. So anyways, James, great to chat with you. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Gil.